Okay, family, we're gonna keep it going with medical medium cleanse to heal, chapter 4. I'll let y'all get into it. It's important information about your health, so we need it. Let's keep going.
Chapter 4. What about the microbiome? The term microbiome has exploded in popularity because it sounds like an advanced word and because it's everywhere. People tend to think the concept must be wholly understood. The way conversations are framed now, it's if you don't know anything about the microbiome, then you don't know anything about health. That means that you may find yourself wondering why the 369 cleanse and other medical medium cleanses aren't entirely centered on microbiota or gut flora. Here's the truth. The microbiome explains everything trend is an indication of the growing awareness that chronic symptoms and illness are taking over the population. That awareness is good. It's better than the days when people had such a hard time being believed that their trouble getting out of bed wasn't laziness, that their brain fog or bloating or stomach cramping or poor digestion wasn't their fault, and that their pain wasn't in their head. The microbiome trend is not ultimately moving us forward, though, because its fundamental premise that an imbalance of fungi and candida and a lack of beneficial bacteria and unproductive microorganisms in the gut are responsible for the health complaints of our modern world is inaccurate. Much as this goes against new popular thinking, the truth is that our health does not all come down to the complex world of healthy microorganisms in our gut. Any disruption there is merely a sign of a deeper problem. So many people walk around with guts filled with unproductive fungus, yeast, mold, acid, low levels of beneficial bacteria, and rotting, putrefied fats and proteins stuck to the linings of their intestinal walls. Yet they have no complaints about their overall health. They function perfectly fine in everyday life. Compare that to someone whose gut isn't dealing with all these factors and yet can barely function enough to get out of bed, or someone who is dealing with mystery pain or high anxiety. You can add all the beneficial microorganisms you want to your gut. Choose the best probiotics, focus on improving your microbiome, and in the end, if you're walking around with a low-grade viral infection for years, or streptococcus bacteria inside your organs, or even intestinal tract, this focus on good bacteria is not going to take you to a secure place with your health, healing, and recovery. Killing off pathogens and removing their fuel sources from the body is the only way to address the real issues behind mystery illness, which includes chronic illnesses that may be labeled with names and yet aren't understood by medical research and science. You can't kill unproductive bacteria or viruses with probiotics. The cold, hard truth is that the microbiome trend is not the panacea we're seeking to address chronic illness. Another way to blame ourselves. Is it true that we have a complex world of microorganisms in our guts? Absolutely. Is this the answer to everyone's suffering? No. That's only another theory as the health world scrambles to understand why everybody is sick. It's not even a new theory. It's back to the old territory of candida blame and telling us our guts are where all our problems are. It's another way to blame ourselves for illness, which doesn't get us anywhere, because it's not our fault. Anybody who's spent enough years in the health realm knows that it's the same old, same old. The reason the microbiome is taking off as a concept is that there's a younger crowd coming up who didn't experience the last 3 to 4 decades of Candida blame. These 20-somethings and even 30-somethings were still growing up and weren't part of the wellness world yet, so now they're fresh blood, primed to fall prey to the misdirection and scams that claim it's all in your gut, and it's all about yeast, mold, and a balance of good bacteria, and that push probiotics. Older people have been through all that already. Only it's the younger generations who have the big presence on social media. They're the ones it's easy to influence and sell to there. They haven't been through 30 years of your gut is why you're sick. They haven't followed all the gut guidance there is and stayed sick. The older generations have been there, done that. When they find medical medium information, they're learning and accepting the truth that they actually have pathogens that have been creating and sustaining their chronic illness symptoms. They're wise enough to know that microbiome is just another term for it's all in your gut. Eat better. And here, take some beneficial microorganisms. That never works for long-term healing and never did. And yet the 22-year-old who has a social media presence and is experiencing their first signs of bloating doesn't know that. They're easily swayed by the microbiome theory, which is more convincing than ever because it has funding behind it now. It's a financial endeavor outpacing the Candida scare tactics of the past. A new push repackaged with a new name to create a new distraction, to keep everybody from the truth of why sickness is growing exponentially. It's a prime example of how the alternative health market can be just as confusing and corrupt as the conventional health market. This is a classic equation. It takes a little understood problem that more and more people are suffering from chronic health complaints and combines it with a little understood aspect of our health, the mysteries of digestion, to create the appearance of a sound solution, rather than admit we don't have the answers yet. And here's what makes it especially sneaky. The microbiome trend is not wholly bad. Writing it off entirely doesn't serve us, because of course it makes sense to take care of our gut. We need to know the right way to do that, though. And more importantly, the gut doesn't happen to be the source of all our problems. If we stay focused there, we'll lose sight of the answers that could save us. The real source. Before we go any further, let's establish that it's impossible to create a healthy microbiome when we're not educated about troublemaker foods. Inside of our body is a complicated warehouse of millions of items jostled about, and it's trying to create balance constantly. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there is never a moment when our body is not trying to harness balance within us. We can call that what we want. If you want to call that microbiome, then by all means do that. The main concern as our body tries to maintain balance is keeping the immune system strong against pathogens. How many destructive, problematic, disease-causing viruses and bacteria are active inside us? And how robust is our immune system in the face of them? That's the real foundation, where the truth lies about what's happening to people's health over the past decades. You could have all the beneficial bacteria you want in your gut, and even all the undiscovered productive microorganisms that medical research and science don't yet know about, and you're still not going to get anywhere until you know how to address the pathogens in your body. Pathogens such as the aggressive EBV strains that can cause breast cancer when the right toxins are in the body to feed them, or the strep that causes intestinal inflammation, or the shingles strains that cause ulcerative colitis. Only when medical research and science understand what truly causes the epidemic of chronic and mystery illness, or they get past merely managing symptoms and feeling helpless as patients get sicker and sicker. Meanwhile, medical communities play all the guessing games they want, removing gluten from the diet, playing other elimination and food combining games, being concerned about something called lectins, encouraging the masses to swallow probiotics, collagen, and fish oil in high quantities, and getting patients on hormones, high-fat keto diets, or high-protein diets at the functional medicine doctor's office. Until medical communities are past guessing, they won't break the barrier of healing. People's symptoms will keep getting worse and worse. By the way, high-fat and high-protein diets are the same thing. Eggs, nut butters, chicken and fish, some of the standbys of each, are high in both fat and protein. And food combining is another example of rehashing a practice that's been around for decades. It's another technique that's being sold to the younger crowd right now. It hasn't offered answers to anyone with chronic illness for the past 30 plus years, and yet is taking on a whole new life because there's a whole new audience for it. One of the confusing parts of this is that when people start to be concerned about their microbiome, they tend to make several changes at once. They remove some processed foods from the diet, get on supplements, start exercising a little. You can start to notice yourself getting better that way as you recalibrate your health. If someone tags your improvement with microbiome, it's easy to think your gut was the foundation of your health, without realizing that no one actually knows what happened. Here's the truth. When we're eating troublemaker foods, we're feeding the dangerous pathogens, the viruses, and unproductive bacteria that cause some of the biggest health problems. And pathogens such as Streptococcus, E. coli, Staphylococcus, HHV6, CMV, human papillomavirus, HPV, EBV, and shingles don't care about how much good bacteria you have in your gut. Good bacteria in your gut do not stop bad bacteria or viruses from causing harm or damage throughout the organs and body. Healthy microorganisms do not kill, stop, or even thwart dangerous bacteria and aggressive viruses. Instead, those viruses and unproductive bacteria look for food they like, ignore productive microorganisms, and go about their business of wreaking havoc and creating inflammation. People who have real problems such as severe ME, CFS, advanced fibromyalgia, or debilitating rheumatoid arthritis, RA, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, MS, lupus, connective tissue disease, eczema, psoriasis, or other autoimmune diseases have often been from doctor to doctor, told to swallow all kinds of fish oil and probiotics, even removed many gut-disruptive foods such as gluten, and still they suffer with their neurological symptoms. That's because the gut is not the answer to why they're sick. Instead, the gut is a pathway for us to deliver chemical compounds from food and supplementation, as well as fuel sources, such as carbohydrates, that convert into blood glucose. Viruses and unproductive bacteria get into the bloodstream and take up residence deep in organs and other parts of the body before they make trouble for our gut. Even if our gut gets sick because it becomes inhabited by viruses or unproductive bacteria, that happens regardless of how many beneficial microorganisms we have or don't have. Even if a probiotic product could kill off pathogens in the gut, and it can't, That wouldn't take care of the pathogens in our liver and other organs where illness first begins and where illness continues to advance. Also, be mindful that fish oil supplements contain traces of mercury. There is no fish oil in production that is exempt from containing trace mercury, which ends up feeding viruses in your body. For more on fish oil, refer to Chapter 27, What You Need to Know About Supplements. Viruses and unproductive bacteria are responsible for chronic illness, along with toxins such as toxic heavy metals and whatever stressors may be weighing on us that weaken our immune systems, whether a lack of resources or emotional struggles. This combination of toxic troublemakers is why we're sick. And to be clear, emotional hardships are not the root cause of illness. They simply act as triggers that, when we already have a lowered immune system, can make us more susceptible to the pathogens and toxins that really cause illness. We can focus on the microbiome all we want. That's not going to minimize our toxic heavy metal levels or stop the mercury in our system from feeding EBV and creating lupus. Meanwhile, the world's current focus on the microbiome is at least helpful because it's encouraging people to think about what they put in themselves. So if someone told you to think about your microbiome, you might have taken a food out of your diet that no one realized was feeding EBV in your body, and in turn, creating your lupus symptoms. It takes more than removing that one food to heal the underlying problem and get better. If you have mercury and other toxic heavy metals in your system, which are more common than anyone realizes, you want to actively cleanse those out, because it's impossible to remove toxins just by trying to create a healthy microbiome. Your immune system is still going to be weakened if you have toxic heavy metals inside of you, and a healthy microbiome is not going to fix that either. Creating a healthy microbiome is simply not the answer for chronic and mystery illness, neurological problems, and widespread issues such as fatigue that so many theorize it to be. Is a healthy microbiome helpful? Of course. If your gut is in balance, that can help if, for example, you develop a case of food poisoning. You'll be less likely to be injured by the foodborne toxins or microorganisms. A healthy microbiome helps with the absorption of nutrients too. With all that said, do medical communities actually know how to create a thriving microbiome? And who's to say, with all this talk of microbiome, that we have it right about what's healthy? It's solely a guessing game at this point by both the alternative and conventional industries to sell products and make money. The truth is that Candida is a part of how we absorb nutrients, and yet so many professionals will advise you on how to get rid of it. They don't realize what a beneficial fungus it is, and how without it we can't thrive, because nutrient absorption depends on Candida breaking down food. If we're trying to help the microbiome while killing off beneficial fungus, then we're already off the mark. Even if we're talking about a truly healthy environment in the digestive tract, one that allows Candida to do its work without overgrowing, one that is less acidic and fosters a proper pH and has an abundance of good bacteria inside it, the gut is not the answer to chronic illness. The health world has been focused on the gut for years as the source of all our problems. And the theories just keep cycling through the new names. Sure, an imbalance in gut flora can be an indication of a disruption somewhere in the body. Just that, though, an indication, not a cause. For the true causes of chronic suffering we need to look to what this world does to the liver. As in my book, Liver Rescue, the liver is where problems take root as unproductive bacteria, viruses, mold, and toxins move in, and getting our liver healthier by cleansing it in the right way is how we get a healthy microbiome in the end anyway. Liver care is the real key to creating health in the rest of your body, and cleansing is the ultimate liver care. When your liver is stagnant and sluggish from harboring a toxic and pathogenic load, it produces less bile to digest high-fat, high-protein foods. Low bile production ultimately leads to low hydrochloric acid in the stomach, so those foods rot and putrefy in the intestinal tract, not allowing for proper nutrient absorption. This is just one example of how the liver is responsible for gut health. When you're eating what professionals believe is healthy for your gut, the truth can be that it's unhealthy for your liver, and anything that's unhealthy for your liver defeats the purpose of what you're trying to accomplish: healing your gut. Remember, your intestinal tract is merely a pathway for fluids, nutrients, phytochemical compounds, and fuel to enter your bloodstream, move on to your liver, and be delivered to the rest of your body. Only with this awareness of the complex interplay can we wake up to what we really need to feel better. Cleansing for true balance. This is all to say that there's a reason this is not a book about balancing your microbiome. There's a reason it's not all about fermented foods. There's a reason it doesn't hold up probiotics, kombucha, yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, and apple cider vinegar as the answer. They were never the answer, and they haven't suddenly become the answer as their popularity cycles around again, this time on social media. They were and are a distraction as the search for the holy grail of understanding chronic illness continues. The 369 cleanse and the other life-saving cleanses from part 3 focus on restoring balance in the ways that can truly move you forward. Again, toxic heavy metals do not care about healthy microorganisms. Viruses do not care about healthy microorganisms. They don't battle each other. They don't have confrontations. They don't even fight for the same food. Problematic, aggressive microorganisms, such as viruses and unproductive bacteria, do not seek out the same fuel that healthy bacteria do. Healthy bacteria look for nutrients that can be found in fruits, vegetables, leafy greens, herbs, and juices made from these ingredients. Celery juice is one of the most powerful tools to supply these nutrients. It feeds all beneficial microorganisms in our gut while destroying unproductive bacteria and viruses there, and is the most powerful nutrient delivery system to our microbiome. Our healthy bacteria do not look for gluten, eggs, milk, cheese, butter, or other animal products. Healthy bacteria do not even look for yogurt, kefir, apple cider vinegar, or fermented foods. Not even Candida looks for these foods, not unless it's trying to save your life and gobble up Troublemaker foods in order to stop bacteria such as strep or E. coli in your gut from having a feeding frenzy on them. Our healthy bacteria look for antioxidants and life-giving phytochemical compounds so they can withstand the constant onslaught of poisons and toxins that we ingest, environmental troublemakers that we're exposed to, and even our own excess adrenaline production when we're living with an overabundance of stress. Pathogens such as E. coli, strep, EBV, shingles, and HHV6 love gluten. They love the proteins and hormones from eggs. They love the lactose and fats from milk, cheese, and butter. Unproductive viruses and bacteria thrive on these food sources, consuming them rapidly and building up their strength in numbers, regardless of how much good bacteria you have residing inside your intestinal tract, bloodstream, or body. Viruses and bacteria don't care what else is happening. If they have these food sources, it will allow them to thrive. Pathogens thrive on these food sources because they are mucus-producing foods, and pathogens tend to hide within the mucus, using it as a shield. While feeding on these foods, pathogens also release toxins that stimulate the body to produce more mucus, further protecting the pathogens. Meanwhile, I'll say it again, so it sinks in. Your beneficial microorganisms just want clean, healthy foods. Fruits, vegetables, leafy greens, herbs, and fresh juices such as celery juice. Feeding the beneficial microorganisms won't help balance out the pathogens. Only removing the foods that pathogens like and using anti-pathogen measures such as celery juice can we send pathogens on their way. So the next time you see a headline about the microbiome as some new health answer, remind yourself that no matter the updated take on the term, it's yet another indication of a misguided focus. Remember this: you can never get a healthy microbiome if you don't know what you're really going after. If you don't know how to target certain viruses and bacteria, if you don't know to go after toxins, if you don't know how to remove mercury and aluminum, or if you don't know that toxic heavy metals are oxidizing and causing sickness and hardship in the first place. Only when we get these real instigators out of our body are we going to take ourselves to better health. Any of the measures in this audiobook will help you in that quest. To start with, consider cutting out the Troublemaker foods from your diet with Chapter 15's Anti-Bug Cleanse and bringing in the heavy metal detox smoothie recipe in Chapter 23. In the process, you'll set the stage for bringing order back to your gut. For extra gut support, try Chapter 18's Mono Eating Cleanse. People who have real problems such as severe ME, CFS, advanced fibromyalgia or debilitating RA, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, MS, lupus, connective tissue disease, eczema, psoriasis, or other autoimmune diseases have often been from doctor to doctor told to swallow all kinds of fish oil and probiotics, even removed many gut-disruptive foods such as gluten, and still they suffer with their neurological symptoms. That's because the gut is not the answer to why we're sick. Anthony William, medical medium. Chapter 5. Intermittent Fasting Revealed. Intermittent fasting is a temporary band-aid that can support someone short-term if they're not sick. We shouldn't see it as anything beyond short-term support for not-so-sick people, though. And even for those people, to get any of the positives, it needs to be done correctly. If you're an intermittent faster and you've come across this chapter, I'm going to offer you tips so that you can still do your intermittent fasting with the least consequences down the road for your body. It's best to eventually graduate out of intermittent fasting into one of the cleanses inside this book. When you're sick and trying to recover from a chronic illness or symptom that's impeding your life, intermittent fasting will not give you the long-term relief you need. It can only hinder you, possibly even worsening your illness or condition. While I know so many people are into intermittent fasting, you shouldn't incorporate it into the 369 cleanse, which is specifically geared to cleanse the body. Intermittent fasting does not translate to cleansing. What is someone eating on the other side of an intermittent fast? What's going on with their health? There are complexities here that make it unwise to combine intermittent fasting with the 3-6-9 cleanse or any other cleanse in this book. If you're still looking for an intermittent fasting option, you'll find a technique at the end of chapter 16, Morning Cleanse, that you can try separately from the 3-6-9 cleanse. Keep in mind that when you're intermittent fasting, you're never truly fasting. Not until you go 24 hours without food or beverages, other than water, can you call anything a fast. The body doesn't start its fasting process until the sun has risen twice. So if you're withholding foods in the morning or for most of the day, and you eat a meal before 24 hours have passed, or you drink black coffee or even squeeze lemon into your water within those 24 hours, you stop the process of fasting from beginning. That's not to say you should be fasting instead. While water fasting has its time and place, it should be done only with great care and in special circumstances. Point is, the name of this technique is flawed to begin with, which showcases that the experts in intermittent fasting are unaware of how the body's processes really work. Why people like intermittent fasting. Let's talk about the short-term positives of intermittent fasting. Not so sick people who like intermittent fasting say that they feel clearer and have more energy and better focus. The reason this occurs is that when they remove food for more than 2 to 3 hours, the body starts to run on adrenaline, also called epinephrine, which works as a natural amphetamine. That adrenaline races to the brain and ignites electricity there. So if you're someone who's not so sick and not so compromised, meaning that you still have adrenaline reserves, and you withhold food for long enough, you'll start running on those reserves of adrenaline. That's what brings the clarity, focus, and temporary energy. Another reason some people report feeling better when they start intermittent fasting is that they're removing 1 or 2 of their fat-based meals for the day. When you give your body a break from a fat-based breakfast, and possibly lunch, that would have included radical fats such as avocado, peanut butter, almond butter, milk, cheese, bone broth, eggs, or other animal proteins, because animal proteins are always intertwined with fats, you automatically start to feel better because you're allowing your body to do a bit of cleansing. The right way to give your body this break would be to follow the morning cleanse that you'll hear about in chapter 16. It's the healthier option to protect you. And if you're still really attached to intermittent fasting, then the intermittent fasting option in that chapter is the way to go. Giving your body a break from meals really gives your liver, pancreas, and other organs a break from high-fat foods. More in a moment. The caffeine mistake. A huge mistake with intermittent fasting is that people are running on caffeine all day, slowly trashing their adrenal glands. Their caffeine addiction is forcing their adrenals to pump a harsh blend of adrenaline through their body for hours and hours. It's a truly unhealthy practice, and down the road is going to lead to aging, damaged skin, brain fog, severe focus and concentration problems, fatigue, hair loss, and weight gain. These symptoms may not show themselves in someone's 20s. They tend to surface later in the 30s and 40s. Even if someone is experiencing weight loss or stable weight right now, they can still gain weight from it later, once the adrenals have been trashed enough or the liver has become stagnant and sluggish enough. from excess adrenaline caused by caffeine use. This comes back to the reality that intermittent fasting experimental practices are band-aids that don't address what people or their bodies truly need. For more on caffeine, listen to Chapter 7, Troublemaker Foods. Morning relief from fats. The popular trend in intermittent fasting is to consume nothing with sugar in the morning. The method of choice for many people is coffee, water, and no calories. I recommend not running yourself on only coffee and water. I recommend at least bringing in celery juice, coconut water, lemon water, and raw honey, while, if possible, leaving out caffeine, which you'll see in the intermittent fasting option in Chapter 16. Morning cleanse. Professional hobbyists in the field of intermittent fasting think that the avoidance of sugar is why they're thinking more clearly and feeling better at certain parts of the day. They don't realize it's not the sugar. Again, it's because they stopped eating fat. When you're eating fats in the morning, you're burdening your liver, forcing it to produce bile, which stops the cleansing process that your liver was trying to accomplish throughout the night as you were sleeping. All those poisons are supposed to be flushed out in the morning and leave your body. Instead, people normally eat high-fat-based foods in the morning. For example, peanut butter on their oatmeal, avocado toast, or eggs. This stops the poisons that the liver was gathering overnight from leaving the body. Instead, the poisons get trapped in the bloodstream and enter organs such as the brain. Intermittent fasting eliminates fats by accident, with no one realizing it's the fat's absence, not the removal of sugar, that has people feeling better in the morning. Not realizing that fats were the real culprit is a great compromising mistake that will set you up for failure long term. Inevitably, people don't know that if they're losing weight or maintaining their weight through intermittent fasting, especially if they're able to do exercise, it's because they're eating less fat in a day. They're keeping dietary fat from entering the bloodstream for long enough, often 16 to 18 hours, that they can maintain or even lose body fat. It gives the body a chance to rid itself of old fat that it's stored in organs and body tissue. Experts of the intermittent fasting theory and experiment don't realize this is the why of any results people get. They also don't realize that when withholding food throughout the morning and most of the day, they only appear leaner because they didn't fill their intestinal tract with food, which normally causes a natural expansion that widens the abdominal region. The temporary difference between eating and not eating is especially apparent for people who tend to experience bloating from meals. We need to factor in dehydration too. When intermittent fasting, many people are on caffeine drinks of various kinds, which causes a diuretic effect, or they don't drink enough water in the morning or the rest of the day. All of this can create the illusion that someone is leaning out and developing extra muscle definition on an intermittent fast. They don't realize that intermittent fasting is an unbalanced way to do this, and that there are much more balanced solutions. The improvements people see with intermittent fasting can include a reduction of high blood pressure and improvement of A1C levels, blood sugar, and cholesterol levels. It's all because the liver is catching a break for a moment, with no fat or protein consumed for many hours. People don't realize that they would see these same benefits from lowering fat in their diet overall, without needing to go hours without food. When fats are removed from a diet for long enough, it thins the blood enough to help reverse all kinds of symptoms and conditions. This is one of the key reasons why historically, when someone went on a whole food plant-based diet, many symptoms could improve, because they were naturally consuming less fat than normal. When the current plant-based movement was in its early days, plant-based diets were very much low-fat, less fat, and more carbohydrates were recommended. I've been teaching this for over 30 years. Nowadays, due to diet trends, plant-based diets are getting fewer results because they've become ketogenic plant-based diets, which is to say, high fat. Even the paleo diets of years ago had lower fats in them than they do now. Because people are hitting plateaus with these diets and not getting the results they desire anymore, they're leaving, altering, or combining paleo, keto, and high protein, plant-based diets with intermittent fasting, with no one teaching them, because no one knows, that the reason intermittent fasting can get results is because it halts the consumption of fats for part of the day. Instead, people are hearing that maybe sugar is the problem, and so avoiding sugar for part of the day must be the Holy Grail. Or they believe that an intermittent fast helps by giving your digestion a break and allowing that energy to go to fat loss, cell regeneration, and body repair, which can actually happen when the liver is not contending with a lot of fat in the bloodstream. Again, though, no one realizes it's the break from the fats that allows your body to repair and let go of body fat. These diets and intermittent fasting are all part of a guessing game. The simple truth is that lower fat improves your health. There are better ways to lower fat in your diet, namely the 3-6-9 cleanse and other cleanse options in these pages. A recipe for burnout. People who adopt an intermittent fasting approach because they notice that if they withhold eating for long enough, they can get through larger parts of the day without eating foods they regret or eating too much. When you eat the wrong breakfast in the morning, it can set the stage for eating off all day long. Intermittent fasters get around this by withholding food as long as they can and using caffeine as a stimulant to get by. If enough hours pass this way, then when you do start eating, you're already at the end of the day and don't have to make so many food choices, or there's not a chance to eat as many calories before bedtime. There are so many more reasons why someone chooses intermittent fasting, as they try to hack their health and miss the truth in the process. A better approach would be to drink coconut water all day long, because the downside of withholding food and critically needed glucose and mineral salts while running on adrenaline all day is that you're eventually going to come to a point when it's time to eat, or you even reach a point of breakdown. And then it's going to be hard to stop eating because you've gone into glucose, carbohydrate, and mineral salt deficit. Intermittent fasters often find themselves binging on troublemaker foods, even if it's just on their cheat day, when they give themselves permission to indulge once a week. Then there are those who find themselves binging on troublemaker foods without making it public. Those in either crew never learn how to truly heal or take care of themselves with food. Even if they choose what seem to be healthier food options at first, after too many weeks of starving themselves of carbs, and carbs translate to glucose that's critically needed for brain function, plus too many weeks of using caffeine to stimulate adrenaline to replace that glucose for the brain, intermittent fasters can reach a point of burnout. This can mean more focus and concentration problems than you've ever had before you started, even if it seemed like focus and concentration improved at first. It's a slippery slope and a rabbit hole you have to try to avoid. If you're living with any neurological symptoms, such as anxiety, tremors, tics, spasms, shakes, dizziness, vertigo, balance issues, eye floaters, migraines, trigeminal neuralgia, nerve pain, tingles, or numbness, to name a few. Keep in mind that even if they improve with intermittent fasting, it's temporary, and they most often come back and eventually worsen, because intermittent fasting does not remove toxic heavy metals or kill off viruses and bacteria that are at the root of these symptoms and conditions. When the nervous system is sensitive, it's critical to keep a consistent balance of glucose and mineral salts so that the nerves don't weaken and your health doesn't decline. Save yourself from unnecessary hardship. Intermittent fasting experts are trying to teach people to hack their health by not eating. It's another man-made self-plan. Intermittent fasting originated from people who were under a lot of stress, experiencing hardship, loss, or struggle of some kind. These are the sorts of emotional challenges that can make eating very hard, or make somebody sick to their stomach, or make it hard to enjoy food, and therefore prompt them to withhold food, perhaps only sipping tea throughout the day or eating very little because they're so unsettled and uneasy about what's happening in their life at the moment. This is how the idea of intermittent fasting came about. I'll say it one more time. It's a band-aid, a temporary band-aid to get us through hardship before everything goes wrong with the intermittent fasting practice. We don't need to make life any harder on ourselves. If you're into intermittent fasting, I recommend instead that you stick to the cleanses in this audiobook. Learn how your body works so that you don't prematurely age, weaken your liver, set yourself up for chronic illness, blow out your adrenals too early in life, and end up lost and sick. You are far from alone. You are part of an empowering movement. By standing up for yourself, you are standing up for the crowd of people with hopes and dreams for their lives who did not deserve to be held back by chronic suffering. Anthony William, medical medium. Chapter 6. The juicing versus fiber debate. Here's a surprisingly hot-button topic that gets in the way of people trying and committing to celery juice and other fresh healing cleansing juices. Pulp. Certain health professionals share concern that when you juice anything, you're getting rid of what they believe to be the most important part, fiber. They believe that by extracting the fiber, you're extracting all the nutrients and throwing away the very component that's supposed to keep the small intestinal tract and colon healthy. Care for the microbiome to feed good bacteria and lower bad bacteria and allow for regular bowel movements. They believe that juicing denatures food, that it takes a whole food in its natural state and practically destroys it, minimizing what it has left to offer the body. This sounds like a great argument, a noble cause to fight for. It's quite the opposite. Let's look at the real deal. A misled quest for fiber. The only people who are lacking fiber in their diet are those who eat mostly processed food. If you've been convinced that fruit is bad and you've taken it out of your diet, which I don't recommend, you're still getting enough fiber. Even people who eat predominantly fast food tend to get enough fiber. A standard American diet with the worst varieties of gas station burritos, drive-through burgers, sausages, pancakes, waffles, and deep-fried and greasy abominations still gives someone enough fiber. The reason health professionals think we need more fiber is that healthy, diet or not, people are experiencing constipation. That sluggish, peristaltic action that slows down bowel movements doesn't come from a lack of fiber, though. It comes from inflammation. And that inflammation comes from pathogens feeding on both high quality and low quality sources of food, including cheese, gluten, and much revered eggs. Consider whole wheat bread that's packed with fiber, and in many circles it's thought to be a healthy source of it. Trouble is, it's also packed with gluten, and gluten feeds the viruses and unproductive bacteria that create intestinal inflammation, which can in turn make it difficult to go to the bathroom. That leads someone to seek out more fiber in hopes of moving along the intestinal tract blockages. It's not a matter of getting enough fiber. We get enough fiber. It's a matter of getting the right varieties of food that don't feed unproductive bugs in the gut that lead to more damage to the intestinal tract linings. If you're someone who gravitates to a healthier diet, staying away from fast food and other processed foods, and incorporating more fruits, vegetables, healthier whole grains, nuts, seeds, and even avocado, you're supplying yourself with ample fiber, and that fiber is helpful in some ways. The even more helpful aspect? Eating higher quantities of healthy foods leaves less room for foods that feed unproductive bacteria and viruses, which can create intestinal disorders. Leaving out those troublemaker foods, not adding in more fiber, is the real key to gut health. Let's break down what troublemaker foods can do to the gut. Take white bread. Considered unhealthy in part because of its lack of fiber, even people with white bread in their diet get enough fiber from other sources, though, unless they're living solely on white bread. The real issue, just as with the whole wheat bread, is gluten. It's gluten feeding Streptococcus, E. coli, Staphylococcus, and hundreds of other varieties of unproductive bacteria, with streps, many strains leading the way as they create issues such as celiac disease and SIBO. It's gluten-feeding viruses, such as shingles, which lies inside the intestinal tract and creates colitis, or the Epstein-Barr virus, which, along with strep, is responsible for celiac. It's gluten feeding the various pathogens that inflame the linings of the colon and cause irritable bowel syndrome, IBS. These causes of chronic gut problems all remain mysteries to medical research and science. Nerve damage around the digestive tract lining is another factor here. Millions of nerve cells line your stomach, small intestinal tract, colon, and surrounding areas. These nerves can become inflamed too, creating a host of different symptoms, including varieties of gastroparesis and cramping, discomfort, bloating, and slowdown or stoppage of peristaltic action. That inflammation isn't happening due to a lack of fiber. Fiber is not the issue. And where does fiber fit in when it comes to hydrochloric acid? It doesn't. Nearly everyone is walking around with low hydrochloric acid and digestive problems because of it. They're not breaking down their proteins. Fiber isn't a solution here, because fiber doesn't make you break down proteins. Fiber also doesn't break down fat. We rely on bile for that, and nearly everyone's bile reserves are low too. That's due to the weakened, stagnant, sluggish livers people walk around with, and that's in turn due to diets too high in fat and troublemaker foods feeding pathogens that live inside the liver, intestinal tract, and even stomach. As a result, pathogens can create ulcers in the gut. E. coli-based ulcers, strep-based ulcers, and even herpes-based ulcers caused by viruses such as herpes simplex 2. The ulcers don't form from a lack of fiber in the diet. They form because poor foods in the diet feed pathogens. Where does peristaltic action originate? Does it come from the fiber? Not necessarily. Your central nervous system creates peristalsis, signals that come from your brain down to your small intestinal tract move food through you. Some people have a robust connection between their brain and intestinal tract. It almost doesn't matter what you put in them. Their digestive tract will peristaltically move that food along regardless of how fibrous it is. Someone can live off white, processed food. They can fill their stomach up with lots of white bread, white rice, pudding made with processed sugar, and the like, and it will move through perfectly. If, on the other hand, you have trouble going to the bathroom with less peristaltic action, that's not the fault of a lack of fiber. While you may use fiber as a tool to help you manage your constipation, your intestinal tract didn't become dysfunctional in the first place from not getting enough fiber. Troublemaker foods such as gluten and eggs are the real problem here, along with other troublemakers we're exposed to, such as toxic heavy metals, because troublemaker foods and toxic troublemakers, 1, weaken the central nervous system's ability to communicate with the intestinal tract, and 2, feed pathogens such as strep, shingles, E. coli, and various unproductive fungi that can reside inside the intestinal tract. A high level of fat in the diet overall, whether from healthy or unhealthy fat, is also significant because a steady diet of high fat slowly injures the liver over time, making it stagnant and sluggish, which means it creates less bile, and that low bile can be the true issue, meaning that a weak liver is one real reason why you end up relying on more fiber to move food through the gut. Instead of focusing on cleaning up pathogens in the intestinal tract and colon to reduce inflammation, raising hydrochloric acid production to break down proteins, and rejuvenating the liver so we can break down both fats we're consuming in the present and old, rancid fats caked on our intestinal wall linings, we're told to worry about fiber. We treat fiber as wisdom for the ages, the answer to everything, when really, making fiber your dietary focus is like doing a forceful broom sweep of the intestinal tract without fixing the floorboards. That is, without addressing any of the underlying problems. It's why people tend to get sicker and sicker with their gut issues, relying on more and more fiber laxatives that only act as band-aids while their digestion issues continue. How do we address the underlying problems? Fiber isn't the answer, because a lack of fiber didn't start the issues. Instead, we fix gut issues and get your body working again with the very technique that's so often written off, juicing as medicine. The real waste. Let's consider the arguments of anti-juicing enthusiasts. A big part of the reasoning is that making a vegetable or herb into juice wastes the most important part of it, the fiber. Well, now you know that you get plenty of fiber from the rest of your diet, so adding a juice or two to your day won't deprive you. Besides which, fiber isn't the most important part of a vegetable, fruit, or herb, and we'll cover even more about this in a moment. The next part of the rhetoric that juicing is bad is that throwing out all that fiber is wasteful. Interesting. So if instead of making juice from a serving of vegetables, you were to eat them whole, would you save your poop? Because whenever we eat vegetables or anything else, Our body is processing out that fiber and we're flushing it down the toilet. That's how fiber is supposed to work. Fiber doesn't stay in the body. We excrete it and then we send it away to the septic tank or sewer system and don't think about it. When we juice, though, we see the fiber pile up, and that makes us worry that it's wasteful. The waste that comes from juicing fruits and vegetables does not hurt our planet. We can even compost it and turn it into garden soil. You can't turn your poop into garden soil safely. Again, the real issue is that most food waste in our lives is out of sight, out of mind. When we do more of our own food prep and start feeding ourselves at home, we see the rinds, peels, seeds and scrapes of fruits and vegetables pile up. It is an illusion to think that this means we're producing more garbage in general, though. What about all the waste we never see that goes into making the bags and boxes of processed foods we buy? What about all the waste from eating out? Dinners, lunches, snacks, even coffee purchased when we're away from home. They all produce piles of waste behind the scenes. Everything produces waste. Whether or not we see that waste determines whether we feel guilty of a crime. There is no crime in juicing, even though people get picked on when they do it. All that fiber and pulp they throw away, that's supposedly the healthiest part and really isn't. Again, that isn't the waste that hurts the planet. It only helps. It's a harmless byproduct of a process that creates medicinal extracts that people are using to heal themselves so they can save the world. Meanwhile, coffee drinkers don't get picked on in the same way. Think of the massive piles of coffee grounds that get dumped into the garbage every day. Not only that, think about the sugar so many people stir into their coffee. How much land was mauled and rainforest destroyed so that sugarcane could be grown? No matter how healthy you think you are, the foods you choose lead to waste. The foods you put in your body create waste. That's how the cycle works. We can't pretend that the person who decides to juice some fresh produce is the perpetrator of a food crime of which everyone else is innocent. Rather, we need to respect the person who brings juicing into their life. We need to honor that individual who fills up their fridge with vegetables and herbs and piles up their counter with fruit. This is about the body getting exactly what it needs for survival. It's about preventing illness so that they're not a draw on the medical system. The person who eats what they think is healthy, whether keto, paleo, vegan, or any other popular diet, and yet isn't juicing and giving their body everything it needs, will rely more on the medical system later, and that creates waste long term. The person who's generating juice pulp and fiber now will rely less on the medical system and create far less waste in their lifetime. What's a true waste if we don't try fresh, healing juices because we've gotten caught up in a philosophy, theory, or agenda? Fiber skeletons. Fiber itself. Does it contain nutrients we need? Are we missing out on those nutrients with juicing? Fiber only contains nutrients that can be separated from it, which means that no, we're not missing out. Quite the opposite. If those nutrients were inseparable from the fiber, we'd never be able to absorb them. Only when nutrients get released from fiber, whether through chewing, digestion, blending, cooking, or especially juicing, can we access and benefit from them. Say a lab analyzes what nutrients a plant food contains. That doesn't mean our body benefits from all of them. Those nutrients are useless if the body can't extract them easily and they stay locked inside the fiber and we eliminate them, that is, if we poop them out. As much research as you may find about what's inside a certain food, that nutrition is only useful to us if we can access it. Some nutrients really hide inside fiber. Much of the time, our body can't extract the nutrients hiding inside a plant food's fiber so easily. A lab may be able to extract them and put their medicinal properties to use, whereas the body can't on its own. When you eat a piece of lettuce, or a celery stick, for example, or a piece of raw cauliflower or cucumber or tomato, you'll get a lot of nutrients. Those nutrients that the body can easily separate from the fiber. Your body can't access, absorb, and assimilate all the nutrients, though, because as you can hear throughout this audiobook, our bodies are weakened. Fiber gets in the way. We need help from a machine in extracting those precious minerals, enzymes, trace minerals, antivirals, antibacterials, antioxidants, and healing phytochemical compounds that we can't get any other way. I'm talking specifically about juice extracts here, not blended drinks. Our bogged down, broken down digestive tracts can struggle to get a fraction of the nutrients even in blended smoothies because the fiber is still there. Many health professionals believe that throwing whole foods in a blender is the answer to so much, and while that's a great concept, and you'll see in some of the cleanses in this book that blended foods hold an important place in healing, it's not going to cut it as the sole approach. We also need to extract juices to create separate medicines. Remember, you are most likely getting more than enough fiber in your diet, even if you need to keep using fiber as a tool to help move your bowels. Don't let that eclipse juicing. Fresh juice extracts are key to repairing the digestive tract, among other aspects of our health. My gut is fine, you may be thinking. It's strong. I don't need help. The truth is, even the healthiest people can't extract every nutrient hidden inside fiber with their digestive strength alone. It's not possible. You could have the strongest digestive tract with strong enough bile and hydrochloric acid reserves. Everyone's reserves are at least somewhat weakened at this point. And you could exercise regularly, and you're still not going to get everything you need from fruits, vegetables, herbs, and healthy grains as they are. Not to mention that your digestive system will weaken over time if juicing isn't a part of your life. Your body shouldn't have to process mega amounts of fiber, not with everything we're up against in this world, more than ever before in history. Juicing is a critical way to be proactive. It saves our body from extra work and helps protect our digestive system from losing strength. Juicing provides respite. Fiber is essentially present in a plant food to hold the fruit or herb or vegetable together. That's its purpose. Health professionals are not yet aware of the reality that fiber is there to give a food a skeleton so it can stand up or hold its shape, to receive sun in the field or grove as it's growing. It's there as a structure to hold the plant cells together. The juicy plant cells that hold the real nutrients. Fiber isn't there to help you go to the bathroom. Rather, that happens to be a benefit of fiber for people with mild to severe gut injuries from real issues that are being ignored. The best dietitian will recommend fiber for many digestive problems without knowing what's really causing those problems. That's no disrespect to dietitians. There are some amazing ones out there. The answers they need simply aren't in the literature yet. Fiber has never fixed an illness or disease. When you stop eating fiber, your problem comes back. Fiber doesn't kill off the E. coli or Streptococcus bacteria that injure the intestine with divots, creating diverticulitis and diverticulosis. It simply moves food through when peristaltic action is weakened. Bowel movements are about so much more than fiber. Digestion is so much bigger than fiber. It's all part of a symbiotic process that involves the liver, stomach, and rest of the gut and nervous system. And real healing is about taking care of all these in ways we were never taught. So if you fear a lack of fiber, if you drink a daily juice, don't worry anymore. You're going to get more than enough fiber in any one of these cleanses. Much more critically, you're going to benefit from the cleanse's diverse healing components to address what's going on in your body at a much deeper level. The danger of being misled. Why do people turn to juicing in the first place? Because they've been sick with chronic symptom or illness, and they see juicing for what it is, life-saving medicine. They rely on it to bring them back to life. Why take that away with misinformation? When a professional who's vocal in the health arena advises against juicing, and particularly advises against juicing celery because they say we're better off getting the fiber, it shortchanges people of their health and their family's health. That's what happens when we put blind faith in belief systems and letters behind a name, and it's dangerous. If we see a quote that juicing is bad, silly, or wasteful, and see PhD or MD to go with it, and we follow that professional's words because of these markers we're supposed to trust at face value, we get derailed. We shorten our lifespan, and we never realize that we put our lives and our families' lives in the hands of a mere theory that a misled, fallible human being had along the way. What about me? If you find yourself wondering why trust me and why follow my belief system, know that I don't offer beliefs, a belief system, or theories. If you've read my other books, and if you listen to chapter 24, Living Words for the Underdogs and a Note for Critics, at the beginning of part 5, you'll know that the information I share does not come from me. It comes from above, from the highest non-biased source, so you can heal.
So that's why I'm bringing these books to you, so we can heal. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to keep with this. From when I said I was going to start this channel, it was going to be for our health and to educate us on law and legislature, how to take control of their system. It's not their system. They corrupted and tainted our system. And within bringing the corruption and the evil, they've really made our system look bad. But I'm going to get y'all together, and we're going to start a different days. We're going to have the health version. And once we get through with the health version, get you mentally, get us on the track to being mentally and physically fit. Then we're going to start with protecting ourselves within their system together and stop harming one another. I want to share one more screen. Let's see where that's at. Might be on the Kindle. Let me share one more time. Yeah, here we go. Because so you see, I'm studying a lot of different things, and we're gonna go through teaching y'all the language, teaching y'all the rules of professional conduct, how an attorney's supposed to act, what he can and can't do, what he's supposed and what he's not supposed to do when he represents you. We're going to teach you the sentencing guidelines. We're going to teach you the rules of evidence. We're going to teach you the rules of evidence. We're going to teach you the rules of criminal procedure, how the court is supposed to go. You know what I mean? Everything. And we're going to teach you about defining. We're going to teach you the sentencing guidelines. We're going to teach you the importance of defining the crime of an interpretation, taking the gray area out that they leave in so proudly leave in and write into legislature. These gray areas, when you have to interpret something, it's supposed to be clear and precise. And when you have to define something, it's supposed to be a true definition. The gray area part, I don't know where that came from. I don't know what kind of system that is. I don't know where it came from. Gray areas leave for the bullshit. And we here for the truth. It's only a truth or a lie. Ain't no in between. And the judicial system and the courts are here in America, we only need to deal with truth, because these people been lying, deceit. That gray area been murdering Black people for years. So we need to get our education of their system down packed. We have to know their system. That way they can't do us any kind of way. We got to know how they're supposed to handle us when they're stopping us, what they can and can't do. So y'all, we got a long road to go in a short time, So I'm gonna start keep going with the health part, because we're gonna keep on it until we mentally and physically fit, and we got other books to do. And then I'm gonna go into y'all making your own antibiotics. I'm gonna go into how to do that. I'm gonna go into making antivirals. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna do all of that. We're gonna make our own ointments. All natural. I'm gonna give it all to you. It's gonna be free. Just like these books are. All you gotta do is pay attention. It's gonna be there, baby. So y'all, let's get it, man. We here. We're finna end this. You know what I mean? Until the next chapters. We left on chapter 5. So we moving along.